Hello and welcome to the Man Cave here at Wistful Vistas, beautiful suburban San Diego, California. Today's been sort of a cloudy day, off and on cloud. We're out of a few days of rain and riding weather is coming up. I'm doing a video that is very much overdue, and that is the ownership retrospective of this motorcycle, the 2017 Aprilia Tuono factory. So stand by and I'll give you my experience and what I have done to it. Let's get into it. What do you say? We're going to cover several subjects related to my ownership of this machine, and those will include, of course, the ownership experience itself, and that is my personal enjoyment of the motorcycle, what I like, what I don't like, and also the costs associated with owning such a machine. And I want to say right now, bear in mind that these costs are related to USA and California specifically. There is no way that this machine is inexpensive to own and operate, no matter where you live, but California may be a little bit of an outlier because we pay a little more than perhaps some other states for certain items of necessity. I purchased this from Grand Prix Motors near downtown San Diego in June of 2017, and I want to recommend those guys if you're in the greater San Diego area and interested in Aprilia, Ducati, Moto Guzzi. I'm not sure what other machines they have there, but great people to deal with, and my purchase experience with them was excellent. I traded in a 2014 MV Agusta Brutale 800 to buy this machine. And I had progressed, I got back into motorcycle riding. I had progressed through a Kawasaki 650 Ninja to that Brutale 800. And when I felt I was ready for a liter bike, although this is a little bit more than a liter, I moved up to this machine. Never regretted the move and I've enjoyed it ever since. I paid $18,315.77 for this machine. Why does that 77 cents bother me? I don't know. Maybe we could have struck a better deal there. I don't know. They are around and they are available. Maybe you won't get charged that 77 cents. California is a pretty high sales tax state, so it was about $2,000 for sales taxes, license, etc. to get it out the door. So out the door, total prices all in, I was just sliding under about $20,000. Now that's expensive. That is expensive. But hey, California and the Italian motorcycle premium that you pay, but there it is. That's what I paid. Now let's go on and talk about the other aspects of ownership of this magnificent machine. To license this in California cost this year for the 2020-2021 season $235. That's down this year, ladies and gentlemen, $5 from 2019 because it cost $240 to license this in the 2018-2019 year. For that, I get a little sticker that goes back on the back of the license plate so that any policeman says, has this gentleman, I hope they call me a gentleman, paid for his privilege of riding this around on our city, state, county streets, he will see that and say, yes, he has. Bless his heart. Travel in peace, son. That annual license fee is based on part, or in part, on the purchase price of the motorcycle. So had you paid less for a motorcycle, you would be paying less on a yearly basis for the license. In some cases, a lot less, maybe as much as $100 had you purchased a used one, for instance, or something less. So that is graduated, depends upon the purchase price of the machine, and over time it does come down. This past year, a whopping $5. By the way, in case you're wondering, this little cord right here goes up to the ceiling, and that is my battery tender. That's what I use to keep the battery charged. Knock on wood, battery is original equipment in this machine. One of these days I may replace it with a lithium battery. But so far it's working great, and I recommend that if you're going to not ride your machine for any length of time and it's a standard battery, that you do get yourself an inexpensive battery charger and keep it on the charger when you're not intending to use it. So the next thing to talk about is insurance. I am what I hope people will kindly describe as a senior rider with very few incidents, no tickets for a long while, one accident about 3 years ago, but very few incidents on my driving record. So I am, as a senior citizen, according to the way the insurance companies figure things, less likely to get into an accident. Having said that, it's still relatively expensive to insure. Insure this for 6 months period of time. I recently switched insurance companies, by the way, and if you're in a state that does allow it, I recommend you take a look at Geico, G-E-I-C-O. I found them very good to deal with. Knock wood again, I've not had an accident on this machine and don't intend to have one. But the Geico insurance saved me nearly 40% over what I was paying previously with a company called Pacific Specialties. But I pay about $300 per 6 month period of time to insure this machine. Here's a subject area that may vary widely if you're younger or living in a high insurance state. You will pay a premium for anything Italian made over anything not Italian made. So there is a premium. How much is that premium? Sorry, can't tell you. But my personal experience is about that with Geico. And again, I'd recommend them at least as far as the cost goes. They're pretty reasonable in cost. All right, let's talk about the machine itself. What is an Aprilia Tuono factory? There are two models of Tuono. One is the Tuono RR. Tuono means thunder in Italian, and the motor is certainly sonorous. It certainly makes a noise that's very captivating for me. And in fact, most of the testers that ride these things comment on that motor sound. It's intoxicating. So there is the RR, which means race replica, and then there is the factory. Both of them use the exact same engine, tuned the exact same way. There are differences with the machines. The major difference is the Öhlins suspension. Öhlins. Anyway, the major difference on the factory is the Öhlins suspension, and that's quite an upgrade, supposedly, from the Sachs suspension that comes with the RR model, the race replica. Having said that, there's a $2,000 price differential between the two. And if someone were to say to me or ask me the question, hey, I can barely get into an Aprilia, I really want one, I want a Tuono, should I wait and wait to get the factory over the RR? It would be hard for me to say do that, because it just is such an excellent machine in both levels of trim. I would find it hard to justify spending that extra $2,000 if it is a stretch for you. The motor is over a liter. It's around, I forget what it is. I'll put that in a little bubble thing up here. What is the motor capacity? It's a little over a liter. They call it an 1100. and it's reputedly worth about 175 or so horsepower with good torque. It's in the configuration of a V, but it's a V4. So the claim with that engine design compared to an inline 4, it's narrower, and compared to an inline 4, it does have some of the characteristics of a V-twin, which those motor configurations generally have nice down-low torque outputs. But you get the revving and the higher end of a 4-cylinder with the torque of that V. This model, the Tuono, has been around since 2012. Started out as a 1 liter, strictly 1 liter, just under 1,000 cc's machine, up until about 2014, 2015, I think. Then it went to over 2 liters in 2015, 2016. They also did some significant upgrades to the interior of the motor in terms of piston coatings and some other allied items having to do with the injection and the power delivery design. And 2017, the year that I bought this model, they came out with a full TFT or full digital display. The earlier models have a combination analog tachometer and digital on the side display. I really liked that TFT, and that's when I decided to make my move. The major difference, as I understand it, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, the major difference is, as I understand it, for the 2019-2020 models is there's now an electronic suspension available. So you can tune those and change the suspension characteristics on the fly. On this model, the 2017, you do get the sacks. You have the adjustments for compression and rebound, and I cannot complain. It really works well. What's my ownership experience been like with this machine? Is it reliable? One of the things you read about on all the forums is stay away from Italian machines. They are unreliable. I must say, in my own experience, I have found this to be a very reliable machine. I have had 2 incidents where there's been an issue. When I first purchased it, the original factory software would read a relatively high temperature, of which we have a little bit here in San Diego, and at a certain point literally shut the engine off. And that happened to me once when I was riding in the mountains near here, and coming up to a stoplight, pulled in the clutch, and the engine shut off. It just stopped. Tried to turn it on, get it restarted as I was rolling along with the key, could not do so. Had to pull over to the curb, give it a 30-second to 2-3 minute count. Temperature came down, started it up, and got home. Did not stall again. When I took it back to Grand Prix Motorcycles, they told me that that was a software issue, and it was a safety issue, but they had redesigned the coolant system on the 16s forwards, I think, 15, 16s forwards, and they didn't need to cut out like that for protection. So the first reflash they did took that out. It has not done that since. I have not had a hot stall issue. Second thing that happened, there's only been, that I know of, one factory recall for this model, and that was for the front brake cylinder, the handlebar mounted brake cylinder. There's a little piston in there, and as originally supplied, that piston was in plastic, and under certain conditions, Aprilia discerned that that plastic piston would break, and they recalled the machines to replace that with a metal piston. No charge, of course. My understanding as I read through that, of course, that's pretty frightening when you first read that, but as I read through that, it looked like that was a racetrack associated problem. It had happened with a couple of machines. Was I close to it? Did I ever come near it? No, not really. So those are, if you want to talk reliability, those are the only two glitches I've had owning this machine that might call into question a reliability issue. The other thing to talk about is servicing. How often do you service? Why do you service it? So I want to preface that by saying how often I ride it. I do not ride this every day. I do not commute on it. I'm not a heavy rider at all. This is a recreational vehicle for me. Like they say, there's no motorcycles parked in front of a psychiatrist's office, because that's how I get my therapy. When I want to relax and enjoy myself and be a little bit of alone, this machine answers that need very, very satisfactorily. So having said that, a couple thousand miles a year really is about all I put on this machine. A lot of afternoon rides. I love going to our local mountains and curving around, carving around. Don't ride it that hard, and as you can tell by my mileage, I don't ride it that often. So I want to preface that, and whether that has to bear with reliability issues, would it be more of an issue were I riding it more often? I don't know. I don't hear that. I don't get that from people out there on the net. So I take it in whether it has the mileage or not. They do have recommended mileage intervals based on the miles you've traveled. But since I don't do that, I take it in once per year, get the oil changed anyway, because that's good insurance. If you're going to spend that kind of money on a machine, I think that's pretty inexpensive insurance. So I get that done every other year. This last time I went in, I had a brake flush and bleed. So every other year I get the brake flush and bleed. Just went in and did that. Excuse me, I'm going to check my notes here. At Moto Forza, that came to a total of $396.38. It's around $300 per year, in my experience, for a service call, if you do it the way I do. You don't need to do that, but I do, because this is an expensive machine and that motor is like a little gym. So for me, that's kind of inexpensive insurance to keep it going on. Should you follow the regular service intervals, you will not get in and out of the dealership, no matter what the time period is, for less than $300 in my experience. So just plan on doing that. I don't think that's too far out of line with most other motorcycle service charges, but it is a cost of ownership, and something like this that runs so well, I highly recommend that you try and follow that service routine. Okay, reading through my notes here, talked about costs, reliability, the maintenance department, anything in the maintenance, which we've caught up with. The last thing to mention is what do I think of its looks? Well, I've always thought this was a really nice looking machine. I always have. So for me, one of the other draws was the looks of it. I love this combination. These are Italian flag colors, red, green, and white. Black is not on the Italian flag, but it looks good on the machine. So for me, the looks, I think this is still a very good looking machine. It still does well overall performance-wise and testing-wise. Whenever they get together and test the latest crop of Leader Plus Sport Nakeds, this machine is either at the top or very near the top, within one or two of the top. I do believe that in 2017, this model was the top-rated Sport Naked for the year. Okay, brought you up to date. Sorry for that. It's been a while. I've owed this update, and I feel that if it helps someone out there in the motorcycle land, I'm very happy to have done it. We're not done yet though, because what I want to do now is go through and take a look at the changes and modifications I've done. To do that, I'm going to take the camera and we're going to go a little bit hand in hand as we walk through and look around the machine and see the changes I've done. Just had a comment from a gentleman, by the way, who said, are they really modifications? Aren't they just accessories that you put on? I think that a modification involves a change, so he's got a point. I think if you're adding something to the machine and something doesn't come off, that's probably an accessory. But if you're changing the machine, if you're taking something off to put something new on, different, no matter how easy or hard the task, I would regard that as a modification. So, haven't got that definition out of the way. Let's go through and take a look at the changes I've made.